The wagon rolled into Round Rock before sunrise, wheels ticking over hard-packed ruts, canvas creaking like a ship's sail in a dry wind. The driver kept his brim low and his shoulders squared against the chill. He had a rider's slouch and a gambler's eyes, watchful and measuring. In the bed behind him lay a tool chest, a coil of rope, and burlap sacks that would do for money if they got any. The men with him sat easy, hats down, shirts dark with trail sweat. They looked like freighters run late. They were not. The driver was Sam Bass, and the wagon was a disguise with just enough truth to pass a sleepy town at first light. He had come a long way to reach this street. Bass grew up in Denton after drifting from Indiana as a boy, learning horses and cards and how to see a half chance before someone else did. He rode with a trail crew, then tried honest work hauling stone. It didn't stick. He found he could run a racehorse better than he could carry a shovel, and won money until the winning stopped. The winter before, he and a small crew hit a Union Pacific train at Big Springs, Nebraska, and carried off a load of gold coin that made newspapers write his name like a dare. After that, trains in Texas began to lose their mail pouches and express boxes whenever the moon favored hard men on fresh mounts. The state reorganized its rangers under Major John B. Jones, who followed stories and tracks until the circle began to close. The circle closed because a man inside it could not hold his nerve. Jim Murphy, slight and eager for a place at the fire, had rode with Bass through lean months. When lawmen laid hands on him and pressed him in a quiet room, he agreed to talk. He sent letters to Jones, short and careful, giving up a camp here, a supply stop there, then the plan that mattered most. A bank at Round Rock on the east side of town, an easy approach and a cleaner run out. The Rangers set a net. Bass kept to the plan anyway. He had trusted luck his whole life. Round Rock woke slow. Storekeepers lifted shutters, and a blacksmith banked his fire until it stopped smoking up the street. The new railroad had turned the town from a stage stop into a point on a schedule. Bass watched a clerk sweep steps clean of dust that would settle again by noon. He stepped down from the wagon and tied off the reins. His partner, Seaborn Barnes, slid from his saddle and stretched as if he were shook out from riding. Frank Jackson, young and cool-eyed, drifted toward the general store for the sort of look a man takes before a job. They had revolvers under their coats and bandanas tucked where they could be pulled quick. The plan was to move like they belonged until the door to the bank swung inward and then move faster than everyone else. They did not see the deputy at first. He crossed the street with the checked pace of a man who doesn't want to look like he's hurrying. Deputy A.W. Grimes had heard about strangers and a wagon that didn't match any freighter's manifest. He had a star on his vest and a steady hand. "Gentlemen," he said, "you'll have to give up your guns in town." Barnes looked at Bass, just a glance. Bass gave him nothing back. Jackson's jaw tightened. Grimes's eyes dipped for the briefest second to a holster's swell under a coat. The deputy saw the twitch before anyone moved. He reached for his pistol. Barnes's first shot hit him square, and the deputy folded into the dust with one hand still curled. The quiet of morning shattered. People ran for doorways. A dog bolted and disappeared. The gunfire that followed sounded too loud for a town that size. Rangers and local men were closer than the outlaws guessed. A storekeeper with a rifle in his hands stepped out and fired from behind a post. A ranger fired from the corner of a livery, and another from the far side of a stack of ties at the railhead. Bass shot back, retreating instinctively toward the wagon that had brought him here. Bullets cracked boards and punched flinters into the street. Barnes took a shot high in his chest and went down hard, hat rolling to the gutter. Bass saw him fall and swung toward the sound of the next gun. A round struck Bass from behind, hot and mean, punching through muscle and out his side. He stumbled into the wagon's wheel and slid down with the spokes at his back. He tried to push himself up and couldn't. The smell of blood went sharp and metallic under the heat. Jackson dragged Bass to the far side of the wagon and fired twice to keep men's heads down. The street swam between them, faces at windows, smoke hanging low, the crumpled shape of the deputy where he had dropped. Barnes did not move. Jackson heaved Bass up and got him onto a horse that bucked when it felt weight on the wrong side. They made it to the edge of town while lead stitched fences and plowed into dry ground behind them. A ranger's bullet snapped a strap from Jackson's saddle. He kept moving. The horses hit open pasture, then scattered live oak and cedar. Jackson steered for low ground and a thicket that would hide them a moment while he figured the next move. A mile out, Bass sagged and slid off. Jackson caught him under the arms and eased him into a patch of shade. Bass's shirt was dark front and back. He tried to smile and couldn't quite find it. "Leave me," he told Jackson, mouth dry. Jackson argued until Bass grabbed his sleeve with what strength he had left and said it again. Jackson rested his hand on Bass's shoulder and made a choice young men aren't supposed to have to make. He left him propped against a tree, took Bass's watch and a letter to keep men from pocketing them, and rode for the kind of distance that makes a story hard to trace. Back in town, the fight had decided itself. Rangers and citizens pushed in, weapons up. Barnes lay dead where he fell. The bank door swung on its hinges, never used. The street looked like a place where two storms had crossed. Spent shells in the dust, glass pooled on steps, people talking too loud to climb down from the noise they had in their heads. Major Jones arrived into the confusion and began to set men to work. He sent riders out in a fan to find the trail, half expecting the outlaw to be gone like smoke. They found Bass before noon, pale and drifting in and out, coat folded beneath his head as if he had decided to sleep where he sat. A ranger touched 2 fingers to the side of his neck and looked up at Jones. Bass opened his eyes and tried to sit straighter. The men recognized him from handbills and the way people said his name. They got him onto a wagon and brought him back as careful as the ruts allowed. Women stepped back from doorways. Some crossed themselves. A boy craned for a look until his mother pulled him away. In a room above a store, a doctor cut away Bass's shirt and saw what the bullet had done. The wound at his back slipped through ribs and tore what it found in front. The doctor worked with carbolic and thread, sweat running into his eyes, and called for more light. Bass listened to the sound of his own breath, as if he were hearing someone else's. He lived long enough to speak. He told the doctor to give his things to the right people. He didn't confess in any way that would satisfy a sermon. He said nobody had forced him to pick up a gun or a trail, and that he had never aimed to kill a man until he had to. He asked after Jackson with a look that told you more than the words did. The Rangers wrote down what he said and what he didn't, and Major Jones kept his face still. News traveled on the rails and carried the story outward faster than a rider could. People would say the law finally caught up to Sam Bass, that a ranger's bullet took him down while his partner ran. Others would say it ended the only way it could once you lift a gun to a train and make the papers call you bold. Jim Murphy, whose letters had set the jaws of the trap, sat by himself in a corner and said little. If he felt relief, it didn't show. If he felt anything like regret, he kept it private. He would carry what he had done in a way men carry heavy things for a long time, shifting weight from one hand to the other without ever setting it down. They put Bass in the ground where the town agreed to give him a plot. People came to look because that's what people do. A preacher spoke soft enough that the words fell close. Someone started a song and stopped halfway through. On the street later, men measured what had happened against what they had expected. The bank still stood unopened. The legend had not matched the fact of a man bleeding through a shirt in a hot room above a store. The wagon that had brought him to town stood under a shed, the dust on its spokes the color of ground brick. If you leaned into the bed, you could smell rope and pine and old canvas. It looked like any freighter's rig again, ordinary to the point of vanishing into 1,000 other days. But people kept the memory. They remembered the morning quiet before the shot, the sharp crack of rifles, the way smoke lifted and hung, and the sight of a famous outlaw looking suddenly young and tired under a doctor's lamp. In the years that followed, stories would swell to fit campfires and courthouse steps, but Round Rock kept a plainer picture. A plan broken by a single question on a street. A deputy trying to do his job. A partner who ran because he was told to. And a man who learned too late that luck is just another way of saying the clock runs out. Thank you for listening to Deserted Trails. Subscribe for more forgotten stories from the old frontier.